All right, we're rolling. Elton, Andrew, I'll catch you at the Q&A.
All right. I am going to organize the screen a little bit. All right. All righty. As people are filing in, excited to, it's been a while since we've had our admission officer series where we interview different people from across the United States, across universities, up and down the West and East Coast, Midwest, and with the hopes of really just trying to provide some space for our students and parents to really just understand, perhaps demystify the admissions process. And super excited to have Andrew McMillan from Carnegie Mellon University come on with us. He told me he's super honest, like too honest. So we want to test that theory and see what he might be able to share. But all in all, super excited to have him on. Would you mind going on to our chat and go ahead and tell us where you are coming from? We've had all sorts of people from everywhere join in from us. I know that we have students and parents from our audience who have come in. We also have independent counselors from across the United States. So I've certainly met a lot of colleagues from across the United States and the world. So if you don't mind, go ahead and just let us know where you're coming in. Um, uh, uh, Connecticut, North Carolina. Welcome, Belinda. Good to connect with you in this way. Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Some Bay Area people, as we've always enjoyed. Lots of Bay Area people. Keep rolling in where you are calling in from, and always excited. I think oftentimes we get like some people from international locations, Europe. It's a little late for Europe people right now, but sometimes we get Asia-based people coming in as well. But just want to let you know, go ahead and at the bottom, go ahead and post your questions all throughout our conversation. Andrew and I are going to be probably going to chat for maybe like 35 minutes, and then we'll open up some time for all of you to ask questions. We will ask them all at the end. My trusty partner, Anthony, will come back in at the end and make sure that all your questions are answered, and we'll have a good time getting to know CMU and Andrew. So thanks so much, Andrew, for coming on. I just want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself and introduce your role at CMU, and perhaps it looks like you've also had a circuitous journey back to CMU. So tell us a little bit about yourself,
Yeah,
Andrew.
yeah, for sure. My name's Andrew McMillan. I'm a senior associate director of admission at Carnegie Mellon University. I got my first start in admission back in 2010 at CMU in the undergraduate admission office, and I was there for 5 years. Then went on to Allegheny College. It's a small liberal arts school, a little bit north in between Pittsburgh and Erie. And then went on to the high school side. So I was actually a high school counselor for a little bit and have done a little bit of independent counseling as well. So made my way back to the admission side at CMU, and certainly very excited to be chatting with you all today. And like Elton said, hopefully demystify some things, provide some great insight and some tidbits and things for you to be able to use in your own process.
Awesome, awesome, fantastic. So maybe first question for you is that like it's 2025, just to check, just make
Yep.
sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
But a lot has happened since 2020,
Mhm.
and there's been some ebb and flows with regards to the admissions process and requirements. Like, what's most changed within CMU admissions since 2020?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for us has been twofold. Number one is, of course, being a school that had always required test scores for the longest time, getting to COVID, being test optional. And now we are back to a hybrid model where we are going to require some type of test, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the SAT or the ACT. So students can submit AP scores from AP exams. IB scores, as well as Cambridge or French baccalaureate scores in lieu of the SAT or the ACT. For a School of Computer Science, you will have to submit an SAT or ACT, but all of the other academic programs will be that test flexible, is how we describe it. And then our College of Fine Arts will still be test optional. If students would like this to submit it, they can, but they don't have to. And then the second is that we had our longtime dean of admission who was there for over 50 years. He was a student at CMU back when it was Carnegie Tech, and then changed to Carnegie Mellon, and then was the director of admission and then dean of admission. His name's Mike Steidel. He retired back in 2023, and so we went to a brand new leadership structure within enrollment management as opposed to the dean model, and ended up having a much more cohesive and fluid relationship with a lot of the other groups, within our enrollment management process, like financial aid, the hub, a lot of additional groups like the registrar's office, which is hopefully making things a little bit easier for families, so where it's not a firm cutoff, right? If they do end up admitted and decide to come, there's a little bit of a gradual shift and change for that.
Got it, got it. So maybe harkening back to the first thing you mentioned about testing,
Mhm.
there's certainly been a fair amount of schools that have been going back to test required. CMU apparently is also test required for School of Computer Science. And there certainly have been admission leaders who have gone on to say that having a test score is really a benefit in really understanding a student's, maybe longer term trajectory or the viability for them to really make it all the way through school. And it's also putting pressure perhaps on us, maybe students and families, where they feel like they need to have a test score in order to apply. Like, how
Mhm.
would you respond to that
Yeah,
in light of that?
great question. And I think the biggest thing is to prepare to take it. At this point in time, you don't know how things are going to change. So do your best, prepare as if you're going to have to submit it to every single school, right?
Hmm.
And then if you don't, then that's just an option that you're going to be able to have if you end up not performing as well as what you might like. But you've at least done everything that you possibly can in order to have that score in case you need it. Besides that, though, I do think that the schools that are now indicating here is our policies. We've taken a look at all of the things from institutional research, and been able to track since 2020, and some of those opportunities for students who graduated, et cetera, makes a big difference. So when we say we are test flexible and an AP score is completely fine, we mean that, right? So if you're not applying to the School of Computer Science, please, feel like you can submit any of those other tests as part of the requirement. For any of the other schools, I think that's obviously a much different kind of scenario where if you don't feel like you have a quality of enough score, how much time do you put into applying to some of the great major state schools, like a Georgia Tech, for example, where Georgia went to requiring test scores again. And that's, I think, again, completely an understandable toss up for students that don't feel like they're going to be in that middle 50% range. I also highly recommend reach out to those admissions office. We now in our transition period have told as many of the high school students as possible that if you're not sure what to do, we will try to help you as best as we possibly can. So if somebody's like, here's my ACT test scores, and here's what I scored on my AP exams, what's best to be able to provide or submit, we're fine with helping students out. We can't do that necessarily once you've applied and once we start reviewing. But in the period before that, yes, we're happy to be able to provide some insight into it. And I think most other programs are willing to do that too.
Yeah, I mean that's no, I appreciate that because I feel like if I hear you correctly, if I'm a student and I've got a host of different test scores, some that I'm not as proud of, but I can call you and say, Andrew, this is what I got. You're not going to write it down and hold it against me. You're going to even think about how I might present those scores in such a way that may aid the process for myself in the admissions process. Is that correct?
Exactly, exactly. Now, that is a little bit different from actually putting it on your application itself, right? So
Hmm.
anything that you do put in the application, we do indicate we will review and take a look at. So I would say don't do that where you just submit everything, right, and let us decide. Only do that for the schools that literally have a policy in place where they essentially say, do no harm. We will decide what your best and most advantageous scenario is, and then only review that as part of it. I can't remember which schools are doing that. There are a handful, but we are not in that position just yet.
Okay, so you're saying very specifically, don't just share all your scores, and it's actually important to really, take the freedom of self-reporting,
Mhm.
take it, and then report the scores that really help you in the process. So,
Exactly.
okay, I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So let's go through a scenario. This is not on our question list, but since you brought
Yeah,
it
sure.
up,
For sure. Yeah.
let's get in there. But like, I mean, if I were to come in and certainly like, it's easy for a student to come in and say, I got a 1550 in the SAT. I mean, there's nothing mysterious about that. But if for whatever reason, a lot of students have test anxiety, they just had a bad day, for whatever the case, maybe the SAT or ACT score is not as solid as they would like it to be, and they come back in and say, but perhaps I have a good number of fours and fives on a range of AP subjects that are both STEM and social sciences. Like, how does that compare? Like, does that properly supplement for the lack of a strong SAT score? How do you read that?
Yeah, no, great question. And yes, typically I would say, you're in a good position most of the time, or how I've talked about it with students is that a great thing to use is our guidelines for which AP exam scores are going to actually come in and count as credit or placement at CMU. So all the time it has to be a 4 or 5. If you've gotten a 3 or below, usually we won't take it. So if you're achieving that, that's going to end up being good enough for the university to say, yes, you're going to place out of something or you're going to get credit for something. So that for sure is going to be something that you can list down. The very small percentage of students that get fives over fours. Obviously, fives are definitely going to be better if you can submit some fives. That's great if you can do it in areas that make a lot of sense, engineering wise, STEM, math, physics, biochem, et cetera. If you can show those fives or fours in those areas, that's great. Not that we don't want to see it in an AP English for sure, but it's certainly going to impress a little bit more whenever you're doing it in an area more targeted to what you're going to be studying for your 4 years.
Got it. So you are, I mean, as originally Carnegie Tech and now Carnegie Mellon University, you are really looking for students who are really have the foundations to really pursue the STEM pathway with a lot of success. Do I understand that correctly?
Correct, except for, again, for the programs that we don't have that, right? So if you're applying
Hmm.
to our Dietrich College in one of the humanities areas, then no,
Hmm.
we're not expecting, a 4 or 5 on Calc PC. We definitely could be looking at, an AP Psych or, different tests that could end up making a lot more sense for the student there. So
Hmm.
it definitely depends on which program a student is applying to for us.
Okay. So let's take a few steps back and just kind of maybe give you a little bit more of a broad entry point. Like, I know certainly, certainly there's gonna be students on the call who are thinking about like, is CMU a really good fit? Can you paint a picture of the student who really thrives at CMU and is just like super happy finding their place? What does that student look like?
Sure. I think in general, to start, it's somebody that usually does know what their main passion is, or the first and foremost, academic or artistic area they're hoping to pursue. but then is also open and willing to kind of explore all the different aspects that CMU has to offer. When a lot of times people say what makes CMU unique, I always talk about very rarely can any institution in the world say that their peers of both MIT as well as Juilliard and CMU can, and that's because of our amazing artistic and amazing performing arts programs like drama and music, and of course CS, engineering, IS, etc. For it. So even though we're very segmented and siloed in the way that we admit students into programs, once you're here, you can go and take courses in any of the different colleges. You can pursue a minor in any of the other areas outside of your major. And the students that do and explore those areas tend to be the ones that get the most out of their 4 years once they're there. So, knowing what you want to do is important because again, students can't just immediately come in and then internally transfer to another program. There's no guarantees for that. But if they, have a passion for, biology, but they also really kind of want to do something within, philosophy or policy related items within Dietrich, they can minor in that extremely easily. So I think that's really important.
So I think just to kind of make sure we're clear on this, I think what I hear you saying is that like there is a lot of latitude for students to really explore different disciplines. I know there's a lot of interesting interdisciplinary programs at CMU, including
For
the
sure.
IDA program, the BXA degree structures that are going on at CMU. And it is a pretty fascinating place to be if you want to study different disciplines. There's also certainly maybe a reputation that it's not super easy to change majors, certainly specifically perhaps in the School of Computer Science.
Correct. Yeah.
um and but so perhaps maybe you can clear up this aspect of like you know like this aspect of changing majors,
Mhm.
certainly, and then for a student and if you're in like say engineering, like, I mean, how readily accessible is it to like say minor in like, in the School of Fine Arts or in Dietrich or anything like that? It just seems like it's a huge amount of courses. Like practically, how might it work and is it possible?
Yeah, no, great question. So, about 20% of our students do double major.
Right.
That includes some second major only options, which essentially are for engineering students to take a second engineering discipline as well with their first. So really only about 1 in 10 students does a actual double major and it's outside of whatever, their home college is. Internally transferring is definitely never a guarantee. We always tell students that we're going to try as best as we possibly can. If there's space available in those programs, of course, we're going to try to make sure that we can provide some opportunity. The reality is, IS, ECE, and MECE, as well as computer science, tend to be overprescribed as it is, and so very rarely are students able to be able to switch majors or double major into them. The good news, though, is that all of the minors are extremely accessible. We have anywhere from 55 to 60% of students that graduate with a minor. Many of those are outside of their degree programs. So it is extremely accessible to be able to do that. And a lot of times, what our advisors are telling students, anyways, is your high school students' desires to double major sometimes don't make sense. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way to all of you who are there and hoping to double major.
Tell the
Um,
truth, Andrew. Tell the
yes,
truth.
yeah. But a lot of times it comes down to what do you want to do? Like, what are your goals? And then they work backwards to see, does a double major make sense? And in some cases, it certainly does. But there's a lot of cases where a minor or even taking certain and specific classes provide you with exactly what you need in order
Mhm.
to achieve your goals, or be effective whenever you're interviewing for specific jobs or in certain disciplines, without having to go through a double major. So we will always work with the students and we always want to make sure that we're providing the students with enough opportunities. But a lot of times I think everybody just, hears, oh, I'm going to double major, I'm going to triple major, or I'm going to do all of these different things, when in reality, you don't need to do that. And you can take all of the really cool special classes that you're hoping to do, learn about all of the disciplines that you're hoping without having to double or triple major.
So what I hear you saying is that actually the aspect of like either taking a few classes, really understanding your goals, but taking a few classes and doing a minor may indeed fulfill those goals in a more effective way, save you time, save you money. I think that's also a big thing. And then,
Sure.
but what I also hear you saying is that actually double majoring in the really high impacted majors like computer science on IS, MECI, it's what if I hear you correctly, you're saying that it's not even just like unlikely, it's impossible.
Yeah, I wouldn't say totally impossible, but at some point, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, when I first came back, students were taking the minor within computer science, and essentially they had achieved almost everything, all A's, except for maybe one class. So they've done everything that they could in order to show I am highly capable in CS. I could come into CS, and there was only four of those students that actually got in, right? Because there was only four
Wow.
spots available. So the good news is all of those other students proved and showed that they had the highest level of CS knowledge, and they have a minor in CS now, but they just won't be able to double major. So they're achieving a lot, but it's just again no guarantee, and it's based off of a seat model, and essentially an individual student could take up more than one seat depending on which programs they're in. And again, there's just too many stipulations from class sizes, graduation sizes, things like that, that we just can't go over for. So we do try our best, but yes, it is limited for sure.
Okay, all right, got it. So let's come back to another popular topic for 2025, which is AI, right? So I
Yeah.
think like not only is there conversation about students using AI to help them craft their college essays, but there's more and more admission offices that are also discussing use of AI in the admissions process. Certainly CMU as a, understatement that it's a tech forward university, but are you able to share a little bit about how the admissions office at CMU is approaching AI for students and also what sort of things they're doing in order to implement in their own
Yes.
process?
Absolutely. And I say this having we just hired our new vice provost for enrollment management yesterday. So she could have a very different opinion than what we've been operating in the past few years on. But we look at AI as, the tool that it is, right? And so a lot of times, when we think back about big changes that happened in education and how it impacted or what people's reactions for it, in general, some people were just way too late to adopt than what we think, should happen. And we use like the calculator for an example. You could not use a calculator on math tests. You had to do all of it in your head. And then, as you know now, everybody can use a calculator for almost everything. We carry one around, in our pockets, whenever we need to, and it's super accessible. AI can be that exact same thing. We need to use it appropriately, though. So if you use prompts in order to help generate ideas for essays, there's nothing wrong with that. If you try to completely plagiarize your essays or just put in the prompts until you get something that you think is perfect or what we want to hear, then yes, that's not in the spirit of what anybody is hoping that you're doing with your applications. I think again, it can be a very great tool to be able to synthesize information, to be able to get ideas down on paper, to begin to create essays and different pieces to kind of show who you are. But at the end of the day, you need to be the one that is editing through, that is making it in your own voice, that is ensuring that it actually is a representation of yourself. And if you don't do that, then don't be surprised if any colleges, or universities do not look favorably on your application. But if you are doing that, then again, I think it's going to be pretty tough. In all of the case studies and things that I've done over the past few years, I have guessed correctly which was the essay that was AI generated every time. Now, not everybody can do that, but I was able to. But I did ask I tried to test myself. I was like, okay, do that same thing, but then actually, read through it and edit it just so that it sounds a little bit different. And then see, and nobody could get it. None of us on, admission counselors, because again, they changed it into their own voice after
Mm.
having all of those points down. So again, use it as a tool. do not use it to essentially do everything.
Got it. So, what I hear you saying is that, like, I mean, you recognize it as a tool. Is it safe to say that CMU? I mean, there's no sort of like internal kind of AI detector engine that's happening behind the scenes.
No, I
Yeah.
can guarantee that we have not used that at any point. And
Hmm.
even if we did, it would not be to, again, penalize or harm a student in the admission process. Again, I think in some cases it's certainly going to be interesting to see how AI develops and whether or not it gets sophisticated enough that you can't tell the difference between somebody that just gave a couple prompts and writes a great letter versus somebody who painstakingly, puts, dozens of hours into it. But for right now, no, we have no intention for it.
Hmm. And is CMU implementing AI on the admission side with regards to actually reviewing essays, reviewing applications in order to kind of filter out, perhaps applicants that may not be the best fit?
Yeah, great question. And no, we have not. There's no doubt that there have been discussions, right? I think every
Hmm.
single admission office in the country, probably the world, has talked about it. We do not have any plans right now. I, for one, am a big proponent of, again, being able to use it as a tool, but we are a holistic review process. So no, in no way would we ever, run any one individual process and say, okay, this is going to eliminate a student from being possibly selected to be admitted. So even if we were to at some point in the future use it, it would again be as one part of the entire process, and there would still be a very human element that would be, making the decisions on the finality of it.
Got it, got it. Let's shift over to like campus culture and maybe when Anthony comes on, because Anthony is also a CMU grad and perhaps has some of his own input to say when he comes back on during Q&A. But certainly Carnegie Mellon's renowned for school of computer science, academic rigor, which is a major draw. But however, students online have often discussed a stress culture
Mhm.
at CMU. We certainly have had a lot of students who've gone to CMU who've really enjoyed their time at CMU, but who've all validated that it is a stressful culture. So, I
Yeah.
mean, what's your thoughts on that? How do you respond to that? And is CMU doing anything to help alleviate that, to really provide support for students? What are your thoughts?
For sure. So I'm going to give the Carnegie Mellon answer first, and then I'm going to
Please.
give the Andrew McMillan answer, which is a little bit separate, and I'll hopefully be able to
I
uh, to
like it.
to show it. So the CMU answer is yes. There's no doubt that it can be an extremely stressful place. It's high academic rigor. Students are expecting a lot. We are expecting a lot from our students. We've also tried to implement a number of different things where it's a lot more group work related, and so students shouldn't feel like they're only going to be assessed on their individual ability to do things. This actually coincides with a lot of the feedback we've gotten from industry partners who are hiring interns and people for their full-time positions, that they just didn't have the proper skills across the board. It wasn't just at CMU, but younger generations for working together in teams and trying to get a better overall product by the sum of the parts rather than individual people being able to produce at a higher level. So we made it a part of every single one of our undergraduate programs. So you're going to have to work together in teams. You're going to have to be able to communicate effectively, and hopefully, that ability to interact with other people and be able to solve a lot of the aspects of the academic rigor together will make it a little bit less of a individual struggle, for students from a stress standpoint. Um, Having said that, I myself went to the University of Pennsylvania. My oldest brother Ryan did go to Carnegie Mellon. Now it was way long ago. This was 99 to 2003. And we talk about a lot of different things. I really have a hard time whenever I hear students talk about how much harder they had it at CMU than many of the other individuals that I went to school with at UPenn in various programs. Is it going to be difficult and hard? For sure. You're going to a top 25 institution. It's known for its academic excellence. If you're going to any top 50, top 100 school in the country, it's probably going to be pretty rigorous, and you're probably, unless you're just the highest level of intellectual, you're going to be working pretty hard, and you're probably going to have to put in a lot in order to achieve a lot from it. So I think that's my biggest regret whenever I see all of that online, and I think it's a part of uh, the ethos of a student to talk about it as a CMU grad or a current CMU student about how much more you're working or doing versus other, again, top 25, top 50 programs. If you're going to any of them, you're going to be working very hard. You're going to be doing a lot. So that's my personal opinion. But even with that, all schools should be trying to make it so that, again, it's not as stress inducing and it is about the academics and the outcomes. So we've always tried to do that as well.
Got it, got it. So I think it makes sense, and I appreciate you sharing. So maybe last two questions before we go to Q&A. So if you've got a question, you're thinking about it, go ahead and post it. Anthony's going to come back on, and we're just going to go through all of our different questions. But maybe, yeah, two more questions. Maybe specifically, since it's end of August, students are working on their college essays, getting their applications ready to submit. The YSSA for CMU is famously important. Certainly, a lot of school, whatever school that really has that prompt, is really wanting to understand whether students really thought through their decision to apply and whether CMU is the right fit. And let me ask you, what makes a good YCMA essay truly stand out for you? And then certainly, maybe I don't mind if it perhaps might go beyond just making references to specific programs or specific CMU things. But for you, what really stands out for a good YCMU essay?
Yeah, and so this is going to seem like a cop out, and I promise it is not. It is not. But authenticity is easily the thing that I enjoy the most. I can usually tell when it's somebody that is trying to say things that they think we want to hear versus what their actual answer is. And it can be extremely basic. You can say, something, very generic, but if that is the real reason, and usually you can sense that in what they're talking about or how they're describing it, it definitely comes through, right? You can of course name drop, or you can talk about specific professors you want to work with, and none of that is wrong, and none of those are going to be an answer that would negatively impact your admission decision in any way. But I do think that the students that kind of just sit down, think about it for a little bit and write. Of course, edit, always edit. Your counselors and teachers that might be on, yes, please edit. But doing it that way is certainly, I think, a great potential strategy to have. Again, when you're thinking too much about what you think we want to hear versus what you want to tell us, that's usually where sometimes students will go wrong.
I lied. I got two more questions. So before we get to the very last question, maybe to harken back to the more interdisciplinary study that is able to be had at CMU. But I mean, I think classically, if I'm a CS or an engineering major, I mean, certainly CMU comes very quickly as far as schools that I would be interested in applying to. But if I'm a humanities student, if I'm studying anything outside of those disciplines, like what makes CMU a school I should consider?
Yeah, so I do think the fact that we leverage and do things in a slightly different way than what traditional humanities might do or what you would get at a traditional liberal arts college, I think is what makes us very unique, and certainly would provide opportunities for students to showcase their individuality in the eventual job search process as well. The fact that our philosophy department talks about the use of AI, and not just in like the philosophical should we or shouldn't we, but no, like in the actual process of doing the work that they're doing, and incorporating it into degree components, is extremely unique. The fact that we have a set of again engineering degrees that also are collaborative, like the fine arts program that we have within engineering, or for the policy degree as well, that works a lot with various aspects of our CMIS program in humanities. I think that is really, a great selling point for students. And yeah, I think you're going to get a very different type of an experience being at a non-traditional humanities or a non-traditional liberal arts school, but learning those items with still amazing outcomes when it comes to career search and opportunities after graduation.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. All right, this is the last question, I promise,
Okay.
before we get to Q&A, is um there's been a lot of talk in the news about universities getting pressure from the Trump administration with regards to funding and the type of adjustments universities perhaps are thinking that they need to make in anticipation of that pressure and that pressure of perhaps losing that funding. How is CMU how is CMU experiencing that pressure? And perhaps maybe CMU is it's not at the top of the headlines right now. UCLA actually perhaps is really at the top of the headlines right now. But how is CMU experiencing that? And how might that impact the forthcoming freshman class that might be applying in?
For sure. So we did end up pivoting a little bit this year, and so we are coming in with one of the larger classes that we've had in quite some time. And so it would not surprise me if we again will try to have a little bit of a larger incoming class. I know a lot of people out there are not going to be too disappointed hearing that, meaning that there are going to be more admits, going around for students. But yeah, there is just a lot of uncertainty. And so trying to plan when you're not 100% sure if your models and metrics are going to hold up is certainly there. We're very fortunate at CMU that from a financial standpoint, we're still very strong. Again, on the undergraduate side, we have not seen a big impact in the way that some of the graduate programs potentially have. And I feel like with the graduate level funding and research, that's where a lot of tier one research institutions are, at this point in time, where it's impacting things at the, professor, PhD, graduate level a lot more necessarily than the undergraduate programs. But we just know that we need to be flexible and we need to be nimble and we need to be very open to making, updates and changes as needed in order to again, make sure that we have an amazing and unique set of incoming first year students for fall 26, and then also making sure that we're constantly looking at how their experience, regardless of what challenges come up, are going to be the exact same as any student who has come to CMU over the past 100 years.
Got it, got it. All right, thanks so much, Andrew. I'm gonna invite Anthony to come back on, CMU alum, 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
Hello. Yes, 2019.
2019. All right. So, Anthony, if you don't mind leading us off with some of the questions that our friends online have posted,
Yeah,
and
of
let's
Good
get
that
into it.
It's good that Anthony didn't immediately come in and tell me that I'm wrong. Uh,
Give Anthony time. I mean, he
yeah,
might, he
sure, sure,
might give him an opportunity.
sure, sure.
Just for folks in Q&A, I'm gonna try to organize things by like topics we have not discussed yet, and then we'll come back to things that we have discussed. So one topic I saw a couple of people wanted to know about the career center services and kind of how the support is at CMU for internships and things like that. Could you talk a little bit about that, Andrew?
Yeah, of course, our group is fantastic. Of course, they will provide a ton of individualized help. But what I think is extremely unique about our group is we do split it out based off of the colleges and the programs. So we have individual advisors that are going to be experts in the industries where students are most likely to end up as part of that group. And so we do try to specialize a lot in that respect. I think what's also unique about our career services is, from day one when they step on campus, even if they've never built a resume before, they can get in with career services and start at the very beginning in trying build up their skills and show things on their resume, go through mock interviews. Of course, they do a ton of work trying to actually recruit companies to interview for internships on campus, but then as well, as full-time employment. But a very unique aspect, which we just learned this year in our office, is that CMU does not have a cap on any of the career services. So most institutions out there indicate, 5, possibly 10 years, and then unfortunately, you're not going to be able to utilize a lot of the services. CMU Career Services is going to be available to anyone. We had somebody, alum, in their 50s in terms of age range, ended up coming in and talking about how they wanted to make a complete pivot and how best to go about that. And so our career services group worked with them in order to be able to realize those changes. So something very unique. So it doesn't matter if it's again 2 years after graduation, if there's something that might be a little bit of a different setback, or again a complete change in career path later on. CMU is willing to work with students and alums.
Good for me to know. But
Hey, Anthony, don't be looking for jobs yet, Anthony.
the follow-up question that people wanted to know about, like how students are balancing their lives on campus. So whether it's like clubs and yeah, if they're doing internship searches and things like that, what does the student life look like?
Yeah, so I actually I wish I could just throw it back to you and be like, what do you think, right? Because again, I did not attend. So it's always going to be a little bit different when you talk about it from, hearing student stories versus actually experiencing it. But I do think the students that are more involved with aspects that they deeply appreciate and enjoy usually end up being able to manage time more effectively. I know whenever I was doing varsity sports in college, when I was in season, that was my best GPA semesters, right? Because I had a very strict schedule. I knew exactly what I needed to be doing, when I needed to study. When I had a little bit more free time on my hands, that's whenever I didn't have as great of habits to do. So the students that are really involved tend to indicate that they end up doing extremely well. We have over 350 different clubs and organizations, so students are, going to participate a lot in various groups. But I do think it depends on where they want to spend their time. If there is, somebody that's potentially doing booth and buggy, that takes up an extreme amount of time potentially as part of their overall co-curricular extracurricular activities, versus maybe being involved in a group where you're helping with just a couple service oriented aspects a semester. So you're giving some time, but it's in a very small dose scenario. But again, you're doing it to a cause that you love, and are able to get immense pride and joy from it. So any and all in between. Of course, we have students doing undergraduate research. We have students that are, again, doing internships. Most of our advisors and academic groups are going to say, please don't do internships during the school year. But we know it happens, and students can manage it. But I think that is definitely at times whenever some students are doing a little bit too much, or burning the candle at both ends in that respect.
Sounds good. Yeah, I remember. I think one of the first things at like orientation was like, oh, asking a CMU student for like some time is like asking for an arm and a leg. So yeah, making sure you have that balance of that time commitments. So,
For sure.
there's a question about how the evaluations. I think you were talking about like career services were segmented towards particular industries.
Mhm.
The question here was regarding like how does the admissions process look at it from like are there admission readers for the School of Drama specific for the drama applicants compared to architecture and things like that.
Correct. And yes, absolutely. We have various teams. I actually coordinate the reading and the review process for us at the undergraduate level. And yes, we do read it based off of the different colleges or programs, so that
Mhm.
the readers and reviewers can be, as in tune to the academic needs and what the colleges are looking for based on all of those programs. CFA is a little bit more unique though, because that is the only set of programs where it is not entirely an undergraduate admission decision. It is a combination of the portfolio or audition that is reviewed by the faculty in the College of Fine Arts, as well as then our review. I would say in certain programs like drama, it is 90% of the decision based
I
off
see.
of your, your audition or potentially your portfolio review. And in those cases, we're really looking just for overall admissibility, not necessarily selectivity. And the drama school is what is looking for the selectivity at that point in time. But for all of the other programs, yes, we do have readers that are going to be reviewing specifically and trying to find fit for the programs that students are applying to.
And yeah, there was a follow-up question about portfolios and how those are evaluated. I guess if you can go into again, hearing that like, hey, it might be up to 90% of the decision. I guess that's a
Yes,
important
and
thing
so
to
what's
get
great
right.
is we do have our counterparts in the different schools, School of Arts, School of Architecture, Design, Drama, and Music that are the director of recruitment and engagement. So they work directly with students and are happy to go through and provide some help. I am not. I love the arts. I am not talented in any way. I would think every single student that auditions should be admitted. So it's good that I'm not giving you pointers on what to do or which combination of dance and monologue you should do. But we do have people that are going to be willing and able to help with that. Thankfully, all of those criteria and what we're looking for are also on the schools within the College of Fine Arts websites as well. So
Mhm.
very specific. We use Accepted for drama and music, and we use Slide Room for the virtual or visual arts.
Actually, as a quick follow-up, like for a student who's not applying into the fine arts schools, would you look at a fine arts portfolio or a performing arts portfolio?
Yeah,
And does it
great
matter?
question. We care about what a student has done, but we're not going to look at a portfolio
Mhm.
because we will not, again, indicate that a student is going to be more impressive because they were able to do XYZ performing piece versus another. But if a student is able to list on their activities list, that they help perform within, the youth Boston Symphony, then yes, of course, that's going to be something that will be highlighted on their application. But no, we're not going to then go and take a look and listen to the pieces that you're playing or anything along those lines. So yes, we care, but we're not going to be reviewing any of the external materials.
Mhm. Let's see. There's a lot of questions. I think people had some more questions surrounding since you have a flexible test policy, wanting to into CMU being a particularly competitive school for things like engineering, CS. They also wanted to know like what other factors would be important for admissions when thinking about that beyond just the testing.
Yeah, yeah. Again, we are holistic. So we're going to look at all of the things that we require. We promise that we will look at when we're evaluating. So, of course, your academics, what is available at your high school, how well you're taking advantage of that curriculum is extremely important. What you're doing with your time, and I won't say necessarily clubs and activities because there's a lot of really important things that you might be doing that are not just a club or activity in that space. We want to know about that, right? And it certainly tells the overall narrative of who you are as a person, what goals you have, how you want to, approach your undergraduate, academic career. And again, how well we might be a good fit for what you're hoping for. And ultimately, that's always what we're looking at. We look for admissibility first. And so naturally, the majority of that is going to end up being context in a number of different ways, resources, how well a student is doing, their preparation for the type of curriculum that CMU has, and then also being involved with the selectivity. So once we know that a student is admissible, then we're looking at all of the factors, every single piece, the recommendation letters, your essays, how much you've been able to, provide some insight as to who you are as a person, those kinds of things, all then go into whether or not you're selected.
And then there was a question also about courses outside of typical high school courses, so whether like UC Scout, community college, how does that get factored into?
Yeah, and so I think we'll always look at first and foremost what a student at your high school is offered. So if it's a part of a dual enrollment program that's
Mhm.
super easy for you to be involved with, then that's fantastic. We're certainly going to count those as typical. If it's an additional course that not all students would necessarily be able to take, or it would take financial resources in order to be able to do that, we're certainly going to give students credit for it, but we're not going to artificially elevate any students who are doing things like that over other types of activities. I think the key potential area that definitely changes is when a student is going to a high school that might not have the same resources when it comes to academic preparation, and then they're trying to supplement it in some other way. We've talked with some students who go to schools where they have a calculus class, but it's only offered every other year. And so they're going and trying to supplement it in some other way that's not a part of their high school curriculum. That's usually something that we're going to take into consideration a little bit more than, again, the student that was able to, again, go to a summer pre-college program, for example, and take some classes that way.
And then there was a question about early decision. I think this person particularly was wondering about kind of the admit rate in comparison, particularly saying like it seems like there is not as much of a change in comparison to other schools where there might be like a substantial like 2 or 3x compared. So I guess I just wanted to kind of give you space to kind of comment on that or kind of about early decision versus regular decision at CMU.
Yep, absolutely. And what that person has seen is correct. However, last year was a little bit different. So prior to last year, we did have early decision one as well as early decision two.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, we moved to only early decision, which meant that ED2 was gone.
I see.
I don't think a lot of people knew that necessarily. And so our ED total applications shrunk significantly. So the total apps that we got were pretty much I don't know if it was a full 33%, but it was a lot. And so naturally we were still looking and admitting about the same number of students. So last year alone it looks like our ED admit rate jumped a super high amount in comparison to what we usually were doing. But we still only admitted the same number of students that we typically admit in the 5 to 600 range or so. So you can usually expect that we're going to have 65, 70% of our incoming class is going to be under regular decision. And still, again, 25, 30, 35% under early decision as of right now. So is there a bump? Sure, right? But it's definitely not going to be that same amount that you see at a lot of other places, for sure.
There's a question about athletics. So just wanted to hear about the athletics at CMU and kind of, yeah.
Yeah, we just had a great conversation with all of our athletics department and our coaches for the varsity teams. Some really cool opportunities that have happened in recent years. We've won a few national championships, two team and a couple individual as well. We're a part of the University Athletic Association UAA, and they've done a great job of kind of raising the level of competition for CMU at the Division III level. Um, Athletics is a fantastic thing for us. There is no scholarship, aspect right to it because it is at the Division III level and not D2 or D1. But I think a lot of the students indicate if they're a part of the varsity teams or club sport teams that they get a lot of enjoyment, a lot of camaraderie, a lot of support in their entire academic journey, as well as being able to do that at the co-curricular level and compete for 4 more years in a sport that they love.
Awesome. Let's see. Trying to go through these last few ones. There's still uh, let's see this one. There's a question about Pittsburgh and how does that shape CMU and the university, the experience of the student going to CMU.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh, I grew up here, so I'm a little partial to the area, but it has changed dramatically in my lifetime, and certainly whenever we think about whenever Pittsburgh was first created, it was created by Andrew Carnegie for the sons and daughters of steelworkers, and was kind of like the original entry point as a first gen higher ed landscape. So literally, it was not meant for people who had degrees or families that had already had a high level of stepping stone when it comes to social mobility. And we've just kind of continued to have that hopeful experience of being a little bit of an underdog in some ways. We're obviously the youngest of any top 25 institution in the country, but also trying to consistently be at the forefront of innovation and change and trying to provide opportunities. And then obviously when the steel mills did not completely go away, but a lot of the jobs went away. The 60s and 70s were some really tough times for the region. And thankfully, Pittsburgh kind of reinvented itself in three different ways. First, higher education. So we're actually one of the top 3 to 5 undergraduate college towns in the United States. We have some 90 some thousand undergraduate students in Pittsburgh. So even though CMU is a medium-sized college, we're going to be about 6,500, 7,000 undergraduate students. There's going to be a lot of 18 to 22-year-olds in the city of Pittsburgh to be able to interact with. So higher ed certainly, at the highest level. Healthcare, which is great. So obviously UPMC, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, Highmark, Allegheny Health Network, some major players in healthcare are in our region. And people fly all over the world to come to Pittsburgh and get certain types of healthcare in it. So again, another big support. And then last but not least, we have the most amount of entrepreneurship per capita compared to most major cities in the country. A lot of the small tech hubs, et cetera, that are here in the region with regional offices like for Google, Duolingo is here, and many others. So those three big areas, and of course CMU being a pretty large part of all of them, have certainly made a big impact for it. We are, again, much more of a smaller city than most others in the country. So I do think you're going to still get a very urban environment, but maybe in a surprisingly suburban type setting. Anthony, I think you could probably talk about that a little bit more. But, whenever I'm on one of the sides of campus and it's the biggest city park in Pittsburgh, feels very different than when I'm standing on Forbes and staring at the Cathedral of Learning in
Yep.
downtown Oakland, right? It's two very weird and different stances.
I try to describe to like students and families, like if you have a car, Pittsburgh's small. If you
Yeah.
don't have a car, if you're taking the bus, it might take you like, if you don't have a car, it's like 20 minutes to drive anywhere in Pittsburgh, really.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, if you're taking a bus, you're going to take a little bit longer. I remember going to like there's like an Asian grocery store on the strip that took 40 minutes on the bus, 20 minutes on the car. So,
Yeah. If you ever look
It made
at
you appreciate those groceries, Anthony.
it did. And then they opened a grocery store in a closer neighborhood to CMU next year. So
I always talk about the cityscape of Pittsburgh being like a photographer's dream, being able to be on like where Mount Washington is, where like the Fort Pitt, et cetera, type aspects are. But for a city planner, it's a nightmare. You have the three rivers. You can't do the wheel and spoke. You can't do city grid.
yeah.
There's no doubt that it is not the easiest city to get around in. We are very, self-reflective on that, but we do try to make sure that we have busing and different things for students to be able to get around a little bit easier.
Let's do this question as the last one. It sounds it's a fun question. Out of curiosity, how does the admissions department get to know the student body in terms of
Oh, yeah, great.
clubs, events?
Yeah, so we try to be as involved as we can. So if there's activities that are going on, and we are invited, of course, we're not going to just barge our way in, but if we're invited to them and can participate, we can. I did for the video game club. I went and played Mario Kart tournament on one of the Friday nights, which was a ton of fun. Myself and a couple others in our office are big gamers as well. Of course, going to some of the service-oriented groups trying to help with fundraising. One thing that the entire institution does, which is really great, is during midterms and finals, we actually do pancake. Did you ever go to the midnight pancake breakfast
Yeah.
celebrations?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so faculty and staff will go and actually make pancakes and breakfast at midnight while you all are studying and working so hard and trying to show our support and solidarity. We were there once, right, at some point, and trying to help out. But I think, yeah, just being involved in the community in some way has been awesome. Again, I talk about my brother, being involved. So I actually got my first experience of CMU when I was a middle schooler. And so I saw the Kilty band as an eighth grader for the first time, full Scottish regalia, kilts, doing all types of crazy prep band stuff or pep band stuff, and then all of these amazing hype type aspects for the football game on a Saturday. So I was pretty easily hooked once I saw a lot of that, and just trying to be as involved as we can in the campus community.
How capable are professors at making pancakes?
Sorry, Elton, you cut out. Can you say that
I
again?
said, how capable are professors at making pancakes?
They are
I,
much better at teaching than they are at making pancakes,
yeah,
but
that's
I think they were pretty good pancakes still.
I think a lot of college students free pancakes. They're not gonna think too much about it.
Yeah, if you put enough butter and syrup on anything, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
all right. I mean, how, do we have any straggler questions that you feel like we need to answer, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm trying to
What do we
look
got?
through. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of these. I mean, Andrew, you have your email in the background. If you can put it in the chat,
Yes.
I'm sure folks would be more than happy to ask questions if they had any other straggler ones. A lot of these are also just like Googleable, to be honest. So.
For sure.
All right.
But
Andrew,
yeah,
thank
we're
you.
we're always happy to, and actually, you know what? I'm also going to do, just in case, because again, if I do get um, dozens and dozens of um, emails, there's no doubt it might take me a little bit of time to respond. So if you need to, you could also always go to admission at Andrew and either myself or any of my colleagues. We monitor the general email account and can answer questions. But yes, I'm happy to answer anything and everything that I can.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on to our show together and appreciate your time and appreciate your honesty. I think appreciate your insight and hopefully it was helpful to everybody on online today. We have not to compare anything. We have Northeastern next week.
Hmm.
So if you're looking to learn a little bit about Northeastern. The email will go out very soon, so please sign up for that. But all in all, thank you so much, Andrew. Appreciate your time, and hope we get another chance to connect in the near future.
I'm happy to do it. And yeah, again, I hope everybody that was here this evening got a lot out of the time, and I always enjoy getting to share a lot about CMU and higher ed in general.
Thanks so much,
Super.
Andrew.
All right, thanks.
Take care,
Take care,
everyone.
everybody. All
Bye.
right, bye.